George Conway, someone who you may have frequently seen on CNN, a former Republican turned outspoken critic of President Trump, is now running for Congress in New York as a Democrat. Conway was once married to Trump's 2016 campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway, and he says that he never expected to seek office.
He says his decision was driven by a single goal, and that is to take on President Trump. Conway officially announcing his bid today on the 5th anniversary of January 6th with this scathing ad.
We have a corrupt president, a mendacious president, a criminal president whose masked agents are disappearing people from our streets, who's breaking international law, and he's running our federal government like a mob protection racket. As for the economy, hey, it's great for him.
CNN's Jeff Zeleny is here on this story. All right, Jeff, when did George Conway become a New York Democrat?
Very recently. He moved to New York City, to Manhattan, and registered as a Democrat within the last several days or potentially weeks, but very, very recently. And it's so interesting because this is something that is kind of at odds with the beginning part of his career. He was a Republican lawyer, obviously, made his profit largely on Republican-based cases. He was kind of at odds with President Clinton back in the day. Of course, all of that changed in the Trump era, as we know. And now, of course, he has emerged as one of the fiercest critics of the president. And when you watch that full ad there, we just saw a clip of it, it really shows that it almost looks like he's running for president against President Trump. Of course, he's not. He's running in the 12th District of New York, which is the Upper East and Upper West Side. And he is running because he says he believes that Democrats should be talking more about Trump. He said, yes, affordability is a concern. Obviously, health care costs are a concern, but he believes that Democrats should talk more about Trump, and that is why he is in this race.
Not a coincidence that he's launching his campaign on the anniversary of January 6th.
Not a coincidence at all. I mean, of course, it's the beginning of 2026. The primary is not that far away, just in a couple months' time. So it makes sense in that respect. But his entire video is largely built to remind people about what happened 5 years ago today, the whitewashing of history that has gone on. Of course, George Conway was at the forefront of many of the legal arguments against the Trump administration, the Trump presidency. And that's another reason that he is running. He told our Jamie Gangel that he wants to be a wingman for Jamie Raskin and other Democrats in the House. He wants to be elected so Democrats can win the House majority. And then for the final closing a couple years of the Trump administration, Democrats can investigate President Trump. But of course, he has to get through some other fellow Democrats first.
Yeah, how many?
A lot. It is a lot of Democrats running. The main ones running are these. Let's take a look at them on screen here. A couple members of the New York Assembly, Alex Boris, he represents the East Side.
Great last name.
Exactly. Spelled slightly different, but pronounced the same. Cameron Kasky, of course, he is a Parkland survivor. He's become an activist. Micah Lasher, he's an assemblyman also, represents the West Side of New York. And perhaps the most famous one on screen and in the race there is Jack Schlossberg. He, of course, is the grandson of President John F. Kennedy, the son of Caroline Kennedy. So these are only a few of the candidates running. Michael Cohen has also suggested the possibility of running. So it's a bit of a circus, there's no doubt. But George Conway has some financial backing behind him, a very serious campaign operation. He's hired Anna Greenberg, who's a well-known pollster, so he's serious about this. The question is, what are New York voters looking for? They often like a fighter. He definitely is a fighter. But is this race going to be about Trump or not? Is that what? So I think it really speaks to a bigger picture here as Democrats kind of decide who's going to run in their quest to win the House. How much do they make their races about Trump versus other issues on the front of people's minds?
To that point, do you have a sense of how these other candidates are shaping their campaigns, or are they leaning more into that anti-Trump argument, or are they talking about health care and affordability?
I mean, there's no doubt that it's one of the bluest districts in the country, so anti-Trump kind of makes him one of everyone else. But some interesting responses from Alex Boris. He welcomed George Conway into the race, and he said, I will show you around the district and show you restaurants that are not next to TV studios, suggesting that he is simply a talking head. But George Conway spent time there. He lived in New York for years, so an interesting race to watch, of many primaries to watch.
Very interesting. Jeff Zeleny, thank you so much for that. In the